Hello, good night. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharp. I'm here live to take your questions tonight. So, as you can see on the news, there's a ton going on. And while I wait for questions to come in, I just want to provide a brief update. So we do have, so for example, in Springfield, there are rumblings that they are going to be targeting Haitians in Springfield. There are a large number of Haitian immigrants on TPS living in Springfield, Ohio, and they are going to head towards Springfield, Ohio, to start to arrest Haitian immigrants whose TPS will now expire soon. So that is the latest that you can expect. In addition to that, we did see an ICE memo that was released in the court in Minnesota that is detailing how it is basically detailing an expansion of arrest authority of ICE officers. So, what they're saying is that they can now arrest immigrants even if they are not wanted. They can still arrest them if they find that or suspect that they don't have their papers and they're a flight risk. Now, when we say flight risk, the way that it was defined previously, for example, during the Biden administration, was a flight risk was somebody who would completely flee, not go to their court hearings, not try to, go through the legal process, not comply with check-ins. That is what's usually considered a flight risk. Well, here they've expanded the definition of flight risk to say the officers can arrest them if at the time they are arresting or they're seeking a certain immigrant that's on their radar, and if they find that they have if they find that they are not going to be in that precise location, then they're going to go ahead and arrest them. So the officer is now going to use their own judgment to arrest anybody. So they're basically going to come up with, well, they won't be here in this precise spot when we get back. So we're arresting them now. So that is, it's definitely going to give rise to more arrest and more immigration enforcement. So keep that in mind. All right, so I see a number of comments, questions coming in. So let's go ahead and answer these. Hi there. Hi. So, good evening. Marriage based interview coming this week. Spouse overstayed for a year, came on visa. What is the chance of getting detained? So, what I would say here is, you know, when when you are going to these interviews, it really is on a case by case basis. So, for instance, if during the interview or before the interview they've reviewed the application and they suspect that there's fraud involved, or they have come up with a presumption that there's fraud involved, that could give rise to problems, complications. I'll give you an example, but I don't want you to go down a rabbit hole of fear and distress either, because there are not widespread arrests at these marriage-based interviews. However, we have seen it in San Diego. We've seen it in California. We've seen it at some locations. It's not widespread yet. But what in those cases, there's usually something that they have found. For instance, there may be a removal order that the person didn't know about, or they're suspecting fraud. And so they call in the ICE officers because they suspect fraud in some way. So, for example, they overstayed for a year, but say it comes to light that they were planning to overstay. They were entering the country with the intention of overstaying. They can then apply a presumption of fraud in that case. That can make the case more complicated and increase the risk of potential detention. But I really don't want to. So, trusting God 2026, I don't want you to go down that rabbit hole. But what you do need to do is make sure that if you have your attorney, you are talking to your attorney about these fears, the risk involved. Your attorney is going to be able to review your application to see if there's any type of suspicions of fraud or potential accusations of fraud that may come up in the interview. So this is where I say that cases are not simple. No matter how you think it's simple, just because things can happen even at the interview, you want to make sure that you're covered, that you increase and improve your chances of success by having an attorney that can back you up, prepare you, review your case, and get you ready for success. In the past month, we have been continuing to go to interviews. We've gone to asylum interviews, we've gone to marriage-based interviews, family-based interviews with overstays, and we have yet to, have experienced this. It's not to say it won't ever happen, because yes, the risk is higher altogether, but it's just to show that with proper preparation, it doesn't have to go that way. And the other thing is, it's not necessarily widespread. Um, okay, so I have a biometrics appointment, I have an overstay. So we're not usually seeing detentions just for overstays. Keep in mind, it all depends on your particular risk. But just having an overstay alone, as long as you qualify, you don't have a removal order, the risk, I wouldn't be able to tell you your risk, but an overstay alone isn't going to disqualify you or get you detained. Okay, can I use psychological evaluation for VAWA if I don't have witnesses? Also, I have approved I-130. Would it be useful? Absolutely. During a VAWA case, an approved I-130 is evidence of a bona fide marriage. And under the law, under case law, it is actually evidence of the bona fide. That alone can be evidence of the bona fide, unless they revoke it. But an approved current I-130 can show that your marriage is bona fide alone, and that is set in the law. Psychological evaluation is not necessarily going to be in the place of a witness statement, but the psychological evaluation can give insight into the effect of the mistreatment and can be very helpful in helping the officer understand why what you experience is mistreatment, especially when there's verbal, emotional types of mistreatment, manipulation, coercion, and it's not necessarily physical. That can really be helpful as well. Okay, so didn't they say today that the judge extended the Haitian TPS? So I believe I'd have to read that judge's order. But has it prevented them? Have orders like this prevented ICE from still targeting certain immigrant populations. Not necessarily, it may limit who they can arrest, which is great, but it's not it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not gonna still go to Springfield, Ohio. So we'll have to see how that plays out, and I'll have to read the judge's order to see what that's all about and see if there's any limitation. But um, we still have to be careful out there. What is the fate of T visa applicants with work permits still pending after biometrics last year? So at this time, there's no, I mean, having a process in place that you qualify for is going to be the best thing. Um, is there a fate? We have not, seen any kind of uh, bad consequences to applying for something that you qualify for. If it's a pending case, though, it means that you're still involved in a waiting process, still waiting, still having to abide by the processing timelines. Um, all right, so now I'm heading over to Instagram, and then I'm gonna go to TikTok. So hang tight, put your questions in TikTok so I can answer. You still getting T visa approvals? Absolutely, yes. Now, I do have another announcement in the past month. Yes, we've gotten T visa approvals. And we have also gotten an I-751 approval. So a 10-year green card without an interview. So I want to tell you about that case, just in case you're experiencing similar, you can get in touch with us and let's start working on your case. So, with this situation, our client was abandoned by the spouse, but in the process of being abandoned, a lot of things that our client, a lot of things that our client didn't know came out. So, it turns out this client's spouse had a child that she did not know about. They, had different debt issues that she didn't know about that ended up affecting her financially as well. And so, based on not just the abandonment, but based on the fact that he withheld information that she should have known, and then, in addition to that, caused her to be financially burdened as well. Really helped us to show why our client deserved to still get the 10-year green card coming from the 2-year green card. So our client is now a 10-year green card holder, and we did that without an interview. So the best thing you can do is go for something you qualified for. The first thing you do, now don't go blindly applying for things. You still have to qualify, or to be a belief, a strong belief and evidence that you qualify for the benefit. So this is where we have the initial evaluation, and then we go through you can go through the attorney here at ST Law Office to talk about your case and strategize on how to move forward. But even with all this chaos going on, the way I am really focusing, I'm honing into application of the law, the processes that are available right now to find our clients remedies, and that is still working and is still available. And the clients that have gotten approvals are safe. So, and our clients that are applying, they have something to show. Having nothing at all is where the risk really is. If you don't have anything and you get stopped or pulled or detained, you have nothing, that is where they can, it gets a lot harder, right? I have been seeing the conditions, and I have had to be working with clients who are detained as well. And one thing I can say is it becomes very limited, your ability to contact an attorney, talk to the attorney, strategize on your case, work to get evidence to the office becomes a lot more difficult. And this is where I say get in touch with an attorney beforehand. If not me, make sure you're getting in touch with an attorney beforehand to check what you qualify for, get ahead of the game, make sure you submit uh, what you qualify for. The reason why that's so important is because having something that you qualify for can be an advantage to you in immigration court or before a court. For example, we have had situations, we had a situation where our client was detained and we were able to get our client out because we were able to show the court. Because when you're detained, usually, not always, but usually, you have the ability to go to court, right? You have access to the court. And we were able to go before the court and show the court that our client is actually applying for this process. And based on that, our client was released. So these processes, we were able, our client, another client was going to be imminently removed. We were able to get a stay of removal just based on the fact that our client has a pending process that they have to see through first. So this is where it's important to make sure that you look at what you qualify for. Give yourself a chance, right? If you don't give yourself a chance, you risk it, you get detained, and it gets a lot harder, and a lot of the options that would have been available to you are no longer available, right? We did have another situation where our attorney met with a couple and they qualified for the T visa. They had a pretty strong T visa case. And at the time, they were dilly dallying about whether to move forward. And within a week, one of them was detained, right? And once they're detained, this was a couple, but they weren't married. So this client that was detained really had nobody else to back them. So as we tried to figure out options, it became a lot harder to get onto that. We do work on those, but if the clients are in a position where their minds are not in it, they just aren't in a position then because they're locked up to move forward, it gets a lot harder to be able to save that client from removal. So just keep that in mind, guys, going forward. I don't want to harp on fear tactics, but I want to let you know what I'm seeing right now and ways to be able to give yourself a fighting chance. Okay, so I filed for VAWA and I never get a letter for anything more. Okay, so VAWA right now is taking about 3.5 years. You can get the work permit. Work permits are taking about 6 months to 12 months to come through. So it's best to get on it now so that you are on the work permit. But once you get the work permit, you then have you have the ability to work, you have protection with the work permit. And you can then keep renewing the work permit until it is approved. But it's 3.5 years. But the important thing, guys, is getting that protection while you wait. Okay. All right. So I'm on Instagram now. Put your questions in the comments. Okay. So you can go to the link in the profile, start with our initial evaluation to make sure that there is an option that we can help you with. Once you qualify, that we do that so we don't waste your time or money, then you can schedule time with us. Where are you located? So we are in Delray Beach, Florida, but keep in mind we represent clients in all 50 states and the globe. Um, the timelines. So someone says timelines, I'm starting to worry. Yes, the processing times are getting longer. However, what I am saying here is yes, timelines are getting longer, but don't let that stop you from going for something you qualify for. Because if you don't have something that you're applying for, you ever hear the term, I believe you have to be in it to win it. So if you don't apply because it's taking too long, you will never get there, right? And you'll never have that kind of protection to show to show that you're going through a legal process. Yes, it's frustratingly long, but get in it right now. Make sure if you qualify for something, you get in it. We send out my T visa application June 17th. I get my receipt number in August, but I still don't have my biometrics appointment. We called the USCIS with my lawyer and they said they don't have it. So calling may be an issue. So calling, they're usually, unfortunately, they can be a little shady. Why? Because the T visa is extremely confidential. And even though, yes, they say that you can now call and gain access to your status, we are still not seeing that freedom to do that, even when clients call themselves. What we have, first thing we do is one, make sure that you are tracking the document. You have proof of delivery. So I don't know if your lawyer has it, but we make sure we track the delivery of all our packets. It's signed by an officer, and then the officer, we have that record to show it got there. If we still haven't gotten the receipt notice, what I usually do is I contact the T visa unit via the lawyer email. So there's an email account that we contact that is just for the lawyers, where we then ask. And sometimes, yes, it takes about a month. Um, to get a response. Sometimes we don't get a response, but we get maybe another receipt notice. So that, I don't know if your lawyer has access to that, but that is a resource as well, that the lawyer um, may need to go through. What about granted withholding of removal and has been working for 10 years? So people with withholding of removal are protected. Yes, we did have situations where that was violated, and mind you, they had to bring him back. So I believe Abrego was the person that he was on withholding of removal. He was not supposed to be removed, and he was, and they had to bring him back. So usually they don't. And with withholding of removal, the only way that they can act on removal is if conditions have changed in the country, then they have to go back to the court, have the case reopened, and then have the judge or say it's okay to remove now. So there's a process that is a form of protection. Uh, and looking through questions. Can ICE arrest and detain someone with asylum approval? Unlikely, unless there's a violation. So if there's a violation, there's an arrest or something that makes the person inadmissible, then that could be an issue. But just arresting somebody because they somebody who has asylum, they have asylum here? No. Actually, the court in Minnesota has found that they have restricted ICE from doing that. They were doing that in Minnesota because they were just grabbing anybody. It was just like free for all for ICE up there. And so they were grabbing people even when they had refugee status. Well, the judge has said they can't do that now. And it's not the usual that they would arrest somebody who actually has asylum. So keep that in mind. My kid's I-130 was approved for Jamaica. I have my youngest with me since December. Can I adjust his status since he's here? Will it affect my child in Jamaica or finish it in? Give us a call. Okay, so this is a good example of the considerations when we're talking about this. Now they just filed a lawsuit, by the way, challenging the pause on immigrant visas from the 75 countries. So we now have a lawsuit, and we have to see where that goes. Hopefully, we can turn around and get that reversed, so people can continue to be unified with their families with the immigrant visa. But under this situation now that we're in, where it's paused, your child is here in the US. If your child qualifies for adjustment of status, the pause on immigrant visas will not affect your child if they're here in the US adjusting status. Now, do they qualify? That's the next question. And that really comes down to what is your status? Are you a US citizen or a permanent resident? If you're a permanent resident and your child, even if your child is under 18, but if your child overstays, they cannot adjust status. The other thing, though, here's the thing. If they don't overstay, they have an approved I-130 and their priority date is current, then adjustment of status may be a possibility. So it all depends on those considerations that I just talked about. So we can take a look at that for you and help you make a move quickly to get that done, or help you to make a decision on that. My interview is scheduled this month and I'm pending with ticket driving without license. Will that affect my chances of getting a green card? Usually, that is not a type of offense that would make you inadmissible. But what they likely many times, and this is not personalized legal advice, this is general information. Many times, if it's pending, they will not grant the green card until they get a final disposition. So, meaning they get something showing it's resolved in court, you weren't charged with a more serious offense, it was dismissed, did you plead guilty? They want to know what happened before they grant it. So they're not going to grant an immigration benefit without first understanding what exactly is the outcome. Oh, thank you so much, Neville. I appreciate that. Okay, so good night. If I'm married to a US citizen, but I don't have proof of landing, can I still get a green card? So I would love to know what have you done to get the proof of landing? So usually we look at finding the I-94. We actually pull the I-94 for our clients many of the times, which shows proof of legal entry into the US. So I just want to know, what was your way of entry and what have you done to be able to pull your record, which is usually an I-94. Now, let me talk about this though. What if you come in legally? How would that work? If you did not come in legally, right? You didn't come in with a visa, then at that point, yeah, doing adjustment of status through the spouse is not gonna fly. You're gonna have to do it. through a process called the I-601A waiver. So I just want, this is where the consultation is very important. So just get in touch with us. Let's talk through this with you so we can understand your situation and get you on the right path. Is current administration targeting to end humanitarian visas like T and U? Right now, we have not seen that. Keep in mind, and this is what I want everybody to know, and it's really empowering to know this. The T visa and the U visa are dictated by statute, right? It is not dictated by an executive order. So what that means is Congress has to end the T visa and the U visas. They have to end the law that dictates the T visa and U visa. We haven't heard of anything like that happening yet. So this is where I say get on it, because in these times anything is possible. But those who are currently applying under this law, you qualify for it. So go for it. Okay, going through. Is there a premium processing option for work permits when filing VAWA I-360 together with I-45, I-765, or any way to expedite the EAD in this situation? Unfortunately, not. There is no premium processing option. However, wherever our clients are experiencing a basis to expedite, we do request expedite, and we've gotten approvals even under this administration for expedite under certain situations. So if you're facing a medical condition, you're facing an urgent situation, you have an employer that is desperately in need of labor, and they can write on your behalf to talk about the urgency in the labor, for example, in healthcare industry, childcare industry. Those are areas where we have gotten expedite request approvals for, showing evidence. The big thing that you need to do is show evidence. So just writing to giving them a statement is saying you need the work permit is usually not enough, but showing evidence of a hardship or an emergency, or where there's going to be a substantial loss of income for a business, or even yourself or your family, can be helpful. Married and we live together. If I file married, file separate with 2 children, will get some money back, and will it affect my conditional removal for green card? So, it really, what I would say is tax advice is sometimes even conflicting to immigration advice. Now, filing taxes together alone is not necessarily the only way to show that you have a bona fide marriage. You can show other types of evidence. For example, if you have the 2 kids, so I see you have 2 kids. Are the 2 kids shared between the both of you? That's a solid piece of evidence there. But if they're not shared between the both of you, what else can you show? Why I say that is because, yeah, it's nice when you file taxes together, but there are situations where it may not be advisable to file taxes together. So for example, if one spouse owes child support, that you know that if you file with that spouse, they're going to draw all the money from the refund. If you file jointly, you're not going to benefit. You're going to benefit more if you file separately. Then that's tax advice that you really have to consider doing, in order to get that refund or get the financial benefits for you and your family. So it depends, right? It just depends on what works better. What you can do is document that. Maybe even get your tax advisor to write a letter advising you why it's better to file married filing separately than married filing jointly, so that you can have that information in case officers ask, at the interview, you have that information to show, well, this was tax advice that you were going by, not necessarily to discount your marriage, but you had to um, adhere to the tax advice. What do you recommend for someone who has been living here for 10 years, married to a US citizen? So I'd want to understand how, usually in cases like this, why is it that you're living with a spouse for 10 years and still don't have your papers? I understand maybe you entered without permission. That could be one reason. But the other is your spouse not the one not cooperating for 10 years straight? If they're not the ones that's helping you to be able to move forward, they have the ability but they're not, that's where there are potential options available. So give us a call, let's talk about the situation and see if there are options. But keep in mind that I also look at options that don't necessarily involve just marriage. We look at other options as well, alternative options, even where you don't have your papers. How can you assist someone get a green card through work to adjust status from granted withholding of removal? So that is a very more complex, it's very complex. And we definitely would need to speak with you to determine what the best course of action would be here. I've not gotten my I-765 authorization permit yet, but I've gotten my I-485 interviews at normal. Yes, it's people are getting interviews now very quickly. What I say is, a lot of people say, is this a red flag? I would say it doesn't have to be. Turn it into a green flag. It's your opportunity. We have gotten our clients in the past month, from December through now, we've seen approvals from our clients who have been scheduled very quickly for interviews. And now they were waiting for their work permits, but guess what? They have their green cards instead, which is much better than a work permit. So you turn it into a green flag. That's what I say. It's the opportunity. How to make an expedite request. I wrote them message on my USCIS account on message, but they are telling it's on processing. Well, that's a whole process. You usually have to submit an expedite request. Well, not even an expedite request. Expedite request is based on certain criteria. Um, Emergencies, USCIS mistake, um, economic loss, substantial economic loss to a business or to somebody else or to yourself, urgent humanitarian crisis. If in the past few years we've had success getting expedites for, with COVID, getting expedites for healthcare workers and childcare workers, if you don't fall within those criteria, then what you need to do is you need to look at the processing time. If you're outside of the case processing time, then you're rather going to put in a case inquiry. And keep in mind, this is not personalized legal advice to you. I'm not your attorney. But I'm telling you generally how the process goes, how attorneys usually approach it. With a case inquiry, then it usually nudges them to process your case because it's outside of case processing times. All right. Um, he was caught and has a 10-year bond. Okay. So in that case, we would love to talk to him. So I'm talking so I see your initial question was married to a US citizen for 10 years. What's the advice here? I would say talk to us. Let's talk to you about options. There may be options available other than just through marriage, but we need to talk to you. That's the thing with our firm, is that we ask questions that not a lot of attorneys ask. So we don't just ask, are you married to a US citizen? And we let it go there. We ask questions to open up potential options, other options, right, that you can pursue. For example, as if you follow me, you know I look at potential options for VAWA, for T visa, for U visa, for asylum. For we've even done for deferred action, where even if there are no other options, but there's a health issue, a dire health issue, a life or death situation, we have gotten, even under this administration, we've gotten our clients protection from deportation for 2 years, and it's renewable because they're currently getting treatment for a medical condition. So, just to show that there are potential options, but we have to ask those questions. If a family of three came here on visiting visa but overstay their time, can the child's aunt, who's a citizen, file for her to get legal status? Not directly. So an aunt can't file for a niece directly. Um, this is where I'd want to talk to you to find out more about what the situation is. If there was an adoption for the aunt adopted the child, maybe there's a situation like that. There are certain rules that apply to children who are adopted by US citizens. For example, the child has to be under 16. I'd have to understand the facts more to determine what kind of situation this is. If it's just an aunt petitioning for a niece or a nephew, no. How long is it taken for marriage-based visas if your spouse is in a partial ban country? So unfortunately, right now, the times are uncertain because everything is paused. So we have a pending lawsuit that's going on. So we have to see what happens with this, if the court will offer any relief. But timelines right now are uncertain. If you are here in the United States and you qualify for adjustmental status, that can you can move forward with that process. Keep in mind though, even if you're in the US, so I just want to correct myself here. If you're in the country, that is right. If you're from a banned country, even that is paused. So that's paused. The immigrant visa from the 75 countries, that is paused. If you're in the country, you can still qualify. But some of the countries that are on the 75 country list are banned. So I know it's a big mess. But if you're in a banned country, it's all uncertain. Here's what I tell you though. Still move forward with your process. Do not say, oh, I don't qualify, right? Because that is where you're going to end up foregoing an opportunity that you qualify for. So, for example, you qualify to get the green card, but you're from a banned country, and because of that, it's paused. Still apply, right? Because I'll give you an example. If you have a child who is under the age of 21, you're a US citizen, you are from one of the banned countries, you are applying for to petition for them, still apply, because once the child turns 21, they're going to not have that opportunity. Again, it's going to get much longer processing times. So, especially in situations where there's a deadline. So, asylum is another example. You've been in the country for less than 1 year. Once it hits 1 year, you will find it very hard to qualify for asylum. So, apply even though the time is uncertain right now. Hey, I'm on my 10-year green card. I have a DV case dismissed 4 years ago. Been traveling international since, but date the new administration, I haven't been overseas. Can travel without any issues. That is a very, very heavy question to ask me on a live. Why? Because I don't know the facts of your case, and it would be so reckless for me to tell you to jump. Yeah, go ahead, hop on a plane and fly out when you have something like that. Because if they pull up that record and they construe it a different way than you do, like for sometimes I people do say, "Oh yeah, it was dismissed," and their idea of dismissed is not under the law, it's not the same as the government's idea of dismiss, right? And so it may look like a conviction to the government. I don't know your case, but it may look like a conviction to the government. And before you know it, now you're going through removal or you're being detained. So, if you are truly concerned, you need to talk to an attorney, talk to your attorney about this because, and don't take the risk until you get legal advice. Can I get your number? It's 561-405-4889. I'll put it in the comments. Um, and if you follow me, you'll see the number on every single video, I believe at the end of every video. So under immigration lawyer Sharifa, you'll see it. All right, it's been expunged and I got the paperwork for it. Now, keep in mind another thing, this is just a side note. Expunged still does not mean you don't have to disclose it. When it comes to immigration, because a lot of people think they got something to expunge, you don't have to disclose it. It means it doesn't exist. For the government under immigration, it still exists. Talk to your lawyer. Talk to your lawyer. It got expunged, but was it still? People can be convicted for crimes and still have it expunged years later. So, this administration, they are very particular about any kind of offense right now. So you don't want to take that risk. I'm in the USA. My green card is in process. So I'm on TikTok now. So put your questions in the comments. I'm in the USA. My green card is in process. I can't wait for that unpaused. Yeah, it's very nerve-wracking right now and frustrating. I attended my interview. I would need to resend my medical, but they didn't send an RFE. So, how long? Sometimes it takes a couple weeks to get the RFE, but I would wait. No, I'm not your attorney, can't give you personalized legal advice. But when we've had situations like that, we have to wait for the RFE. We don't want to be, it's very expensive getting that medical done, and it's very frustrating when you have to keep getting it done. So, you want to make sure it goes to the right place so it doesn't get lost. What if I submit to USCIS and they rejected the package and return only one form? Sometimes that means that they've accepted the other forms and they just rejected that one form. So that could be a good thing. And sometimes it may take some time for the rest of the forms to join. So it just depends. Did you get a receipt notice for the other forms? How long after biometrics for I-360 for EAD? So right now, I would say it's taking 3 to 4 months to get the receipt notice, and then about 2 months after that. So we're looking at about 5 to 6 months to get that biometrics for the EAD. We are excited. Yes, I'm glad. Let me see. Our I-130 was approved over the weekend. Congratulations. That's awesome. Now, the I-130, when it comes to marriage base, is the hardest right now to overcome because once you get approved for the I-130, it there's a very high chance you're going to be approved for the I-405 unless there's some other issue going on with admissibility. So that's a good thing. When you see I-130 approved, it means you're on the right path and It's only a matter of time. So congratulations. I attended my interview. They said, okay, so I answered that. Is it true that person has to pay 1,000 if they travel on advance parole? So no, I haven't been seeing that. The payment of 1,000. I don't know if you're talking about the application fee, but no, they don't have to pay 1,000 every time they travel. Please, I have my sister at Mexico border. She's in camp now. What can you advise? I'm so sorry that this is happening. So the first is definitely get legal counsel. There are possibilities of getting bond, and sometimes depending on how long your sister has been in there, there's a possibility of possibly looking at habeas. But I would have to understand what's going on. So there are multiple reasons why someone may be detained. But why I say that is that may open up the door for actions to get them released, whether in federal court or in immigration court, if bond is available. There are multiple ways to challenge it, but we'd have to understand what the situation is exactly. Is it true that so I answered that. How long is it taking for I-130 approval as marriage green card holder? So we have been seeing about 2 to 3 months after the interview. So not 2 to 3 months after the interview, but in the past, and it's going to differ case to case. But I would say right now, cases are moving along quickly when it comes to marriage-based, family-based cases, and there's no pause. They're moving along quickly, but where the issue is if you are not prepared for the final interview or any kind of questions they have during that timeline, then that's where it can get a little sticky. So um moving along quickly, that could be an opportunity. Should I go ahead and file for my spouse who is in one of the 75 countries? So I'm not your attorney. I can't give you personalized legal advice, but generally, I don't let the pause stop you from applying for something that you qualify for. That is the sure way to lose the ability to apply for it. Absolutely, still move forward with a process you qualify for. They have said they're pausing immigrant visas. They're not saying that they have banned or that they have gotten rid of. They don't have the authority to get rid of it completely, but you have to be in it to win it, right? When it comes to the lottery, I hear that a lot, but it also applies here. You have to be in it to win it. If you don't apply, you will never get to the approval. Of course, it's frustrating. You have to, deal with the being apart from your spouse and dealing with the uncertainty, but get it in. So the minute there's a change or the minute they restart the process, you are in line already. You have found your place in line to move ahead. I got cancellation interview today in 400. I'm so sorry. Keep in mind that the banned countries that are experiencing the pause right now, it also applies to people who are applying for citizenship. So this is, definitely heartbreaking because you do everything right to get to this point, to get citizenship, and this is what is happening now. Should people from the 39 banned countries who filed concurrently for AOS in January 2026 expect a work authorization in the meantime? That is even paused right now. Unfortunately, that's paused. Um, Would I be able to file? No, I just got married a month ago. I'm in the USA. Get in touch with us. Let's talk and see what your situation is. Here's a sure way. Here's that one thing that people don't talk about that I need to raise with you. When you get married to a US citizen, you're ready to apply for adjustment of status. There's that one thing you need to make sure you have ready as well that a lot of people don't think about till like, it's like an afterthought, but it shouldn't be. That's the affidavit of support, right? Make sure you have that. If you need co sponsors, have that lined up. If your spouse makes sufficient income, just make sure that you start gathering that information. It's not always about just proving that the marriage is real, but you have to also show that your petitioner can financially support you while over the next 10 years while you're a permanent resident or until you're a US citizen. So super important. It's usually that afterthought that really shouldn't be. Can you file for citizenship if a pending I-751 is taking too long? Yes, that is a possibility. And sometimes it does nudge them to move things along. Will there be issues for us citizens who use food stamps in the last 5 years? If you're a US citizen, no, you should not have any. You are a US citizen. You should not have any problems with getting food stamps. So now, will there be issues for US citizens? So I'm thinking you're already a US citizen. If are you have you already applied for US citizenship? Keep in mind, even applying for US citizenship, they don't usually look at public benefits. Keep in mind that as long as any nothing was obtained by fraud, you should be fine. They don't usually go into public benefit issues for US citizenship applications. Um, I decided to marry him. Is it okay for him to go ahead and get married again? So it sounds like there's a lot going on there. Get in touch with us, talk about it first so we can understand the situation fully and advise. I-485 was sent to wrong address after VAWA priority date. Will they send it back? No guarantees. There's no guarantees they'll send it back. And I don't know how you paid uh, or it's yeah. So it how you're gonna fix that is really going to depend here on where it was sent. My 48-month extension is expired. What I'm to do? So if your 48-month extension expires, then you would go ahead and get the what's called an ADIT stamp, and it's just a stamp in your passport, I-551 stamp showing you're still a permanent resident. So they usually give it to you for a year at a time. You can do everything with it, still travel, work. It's like having a green card, but in your passport. I filed for FAWA in 2023 and they don't ask for nothing more. Do you think I will be approved? So if they have more questions, you'll usually see it at the tail end of the processing time, which is at around the 3 to 3.5 year mark. You'll see if they have any more questions, they'll send a request for evidence then. So there's still some time to wait. If your son is a green card holder, can he file for his mother? No, he has to become a US citizen. Is it safe to go to the courthouse? Married my American girlfriend in Fort Lauderdale. Um, so it depends. For the Fort Lauderdale, I would have to check to see what the situation is at Fort Lauderdale courthouse. Is it safe? I think it's best for you to check to see what's going on. I know, for example, in Florida, they're not passing any laws protecting immigrants in courthouses for sure. But in New York, they have, the judge has prohibited ICE from going into courthouses and arresting immigrants. When it comes to this, though, you'd have to, check to see is it a safe space for you. Are they still issuing BFD EADs for T visas? Yes, we're still getting those. If the US citizen files for an I 130 but has used food stamps in the last 5 years, will they have issues? So usually that applies to the immigrant, not the US citizen. US citizens are entitled, once they qualify, to public benefit. Do you think this pause will lift up soon? No, they have to respond by February 20th, only interview left. So, and it's really uncertain right now. And I would say it's not in the interest of this administration to lift the pause. I think they have things exactly where they want it to be right now. Unfortunately, I think if the pause is going to be lifted, it's probably going to be through litigation. A court is going to have to order that the pause be lifted. They know the other hope is they do what they say they're doing, and they have vetting. They put a good vetting process in place, which opens up a door to probably a new hellscape for us, but that they establish a vetting procedure and they on pause. And I know we'd have to deal with probably more complications or more obstacles along the way with a new vetting process, but having the process moving along would be better than a pause. Um, so, we'd have to see in the next few months or weeks how this plays out. Spousal sponsorship app for my wife being appealed. Will this affect my app for citizenship? Not not directly, unless if there's some wrongdoing found on this spousal sponsorships application, maybe, but it wouldn't not necessarily disqualify you. But I'd have to understand what the facts are. Did interview from July, marriage base. How long do you think? So, if you did it since July, chances are they're looking a little deeper into your marriage based process. They're doing a more deep dive into the background. I wouldn't have a timeline for you, it just depends on the facts involved. But I would say if you did the interview in July, still didn't get an approval, then about a year to year and a half timeline could be expected. You may get a request for evidence. They may need something else as well. Do I need to mention the reckless driving citation in my I-485? No, always talk to your attorney about these things. This is why you need to make sure you have an attorney. But what I would say is reckless driving is something that usually has to be disclosed as an offense on the I-485. It doesn't necessarily render you inadmissible, but you otherwise they may then try to say that you try to conceal information like this. So you don't want to be in a situation where they're accusing you of fraud. So, but always talk to your attorney. This is why I say no case is simple now, guys. Make sure that you look out for yourself. Look out for yourself. You're worth it. You deserve it. Don't compromise that opportunity that you have to be able to achieve what you have been working to achieve. So keep a simple case simple by making sure you're covering your bases. Talk to the attorney, look at your risk, deal with the risk. Even if there are issues, you have a criminal offense, there are waivers available. You've had fraud in your past, there are waivers available. But if you go through the process not dealing with those, then that's where things get a lot more risky for you and could lead to your denial. All right, so I am going to call it a night, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. Here's what you do. I saw somebody say, are you taking calls? We take calls 24/7. We take your information and then we are going to call you back as soon as possible tomorrow morning. So give us a call. Let's talk about your situation. That's the best way forward. You have to be in it to win it, right? So when I say that, I mean having a process in place that you qualify for is going to be better than winging it and risking it out there. Even right now, ICE is out there. They're becoming more militarized, and unfortunately, even though it is a violation of constitutional rights, the kind of things they're doing, it's still happening where they're now talking about warrantless searches. That has been challenged in court. But now they're talking about just arresting immigrants without having a warrant, right? Warrantless detention of immigrants just because if the officer feels like they won't be there when they get back to get them. Um, so what that's saying is this basically giving the officers broad discretion to just grab immigrants, detain first, ask questions later, basically. So with these extreme types of enforcement in place, it's important to take this time to look out for yourself, look at options. That's what we're here for. The way that I am pushing forward is, and if you've been following me, you know I believe in positivity, faith, and I've been moving in that way, moving forward with that attitude, looking at the law that exists. And that's what I want you to do as well. Make sure, don't be paralyzed by fear. I know the fear is there, but don't make it paralyze you. Look at your options. We are a safe space. We talk to clients in a confidential setting, to individuals in a confidential setting to determine what your best options are. And then we move forward with a strategy that is protected under the law, right? That it is there for you. It's an option. So look out for yourself. You deserve it, but move like you deserve it, right? All right. So, as I always say, like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification bell. That's how you're going to see when I come back on again so that you can ask your questions. I can answer, I can give you updates. And just hang tight, guys. We're here, we're fighting, and we're moving forward. We're moving forward, right? We're going to be here fighting. So, always feel free to get in touch with us and talk to us about what's going on with you so we can just talk through it. All right, have a good one. Bye bye.